Welcome to the Intelligence Amplifiers, podcast that celebrates the people who make the intelligence a collective superpower. In every episode, we uncover the stories of learning and development leaders who amplify knowledge, break down silos, and empower teams to thrive. These are the enablers of insight, the ones turning expertise into action and shaping the future of work by ensuring that the right knowledge reaches the right people at the right time. So, if you're ready to explore how the intelligence is amplified and shared across organizations, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Intelligence Amplifiers. And today we're talking to Chris from RDI Corporation. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Great. And I know you run learning and development at a company that's fairly large and has a fairly large L&D team, and we'll get to that. But I wanted to start at the beginning how you kind of got into that. And I believe you started in sales, not even sales training, but as a salesperson, right?
Yeah. So my background was sales for a third-party logistics company for a number of years, and historically, I was the worst salesperson at that company. I was like the anti-sales guy. You know, if you wanted to burn a lead, you would send them to me. But fortunately, I had a really good coach, and it was the first time in my life that I really think I was put in a position to think critically about my behaviors as opposed to worrying about metrics in terms of my performance. So I was really inspired by that. And as I continued my sales journey, I just kind of unlocked this like critical thinking skill and like self-reflection, and got me looking into Socratic dialogue and things like that. And so I got really good working with the other sales representatives at that company. I worked with a lot of entry salespeople and found out I had a knack for coaching, and I was asked to join the training team. So I trained there for a number of years. And then that's when RDI asked me to come on board and work with some of their training team as well. So I've been at RDI for about just over 8 years now. And we went from a relatively siloed individualistic approach to training to a very solidified training department that I feel like touches every branch of the organization. And that's through work for myself, but especially some of my predecessors who really laid the groundwork for that success. And now we have a training department that's versatile and capable. And the goal, since RDI touches so many different businesses, is to make sure that we're teaching with universal skill sets that are translatable across all business verticals. And it's made for very effective development of our people, but it's also yielded really great results in terms of our learners' capabilities as well.
Got it. So super interesting. So from sales to sales training, and that's where you discovered that you enjoyed training. And you also mentioned you had a great coach, right? That kind of helped you with that. And I remember when I was talking to you earlier, you mentioned your passion for coaching. Obviously, It worked for you. How does that translate into your learning and development today? Like, how much do you rely on coaching? What does that look like at RDI?
I don't think it can just extend to the learning and development department. I think coaching is kind of the foundation of any strong company, strong business models, strong mentorship. And when you look at life is about reaching and achieving goals, in my opinion. Or you might look at it a certain way, you might view it from a different perspective, but always doing better, I kind of feel like it's human nature and human drive. And coaching is really just the format of conversation to identify exactly what you want to achieve. And the effective coaching model is really unlocking the steps to get there. And this is something that any coach I develop or any business that I work with around coaching development is typically in the analysis stage where we're having conversations. They're usually talking about some type of metric that they want to impact. We want to drive sales. We want to increase customer service levels, customer satisfaction. And that's all well. But by coaching multiple different types of business and working with different types of people, these metrics that folks focus on, KPIs or whatever you want, key success factors, they only do two things, Marco, right? They either measure revenue being driven up or saving money, right? So being effective with your call handle time or the amount of headcount that you have. And so when we look at coaching from that perspective, we're telling employees or we're telling people that we're coaching, you are a metric, right? And how well you generate revenue determines your value to the company. And historically, as a salesperson, I didn't like being looked at as a number. And as humans, we don't like being looked at as numbers. So the coaching model that we have at RDI that we really foster is the idea of how do we look at these key performance metrics that we want to drive and impact, but translate those coaching conversations into effective behavioral change for our employees. And so I think it's absolutely necessary, because when we look at the L&D space, the effectiveness of our trainers is measured not just by their ability to replicate and repeat training programs effectively, but it's also to engage the people in their audience. And as adult learners, I've really learned that they have to want to do things for themselves as opposed to being told to do them. And the way that we elicit that desire to learn more is through behavioral coaching models, where the incremental behaviors that we try and solidify and reinforce week over week has a tangible benefit to the individual, not just for the current job or what they're doing or the metric they're trying to impact, but there's a tangible benefit to themselves. So think about it in the same way that if you were to save $10 a week, or walk 10,000 steps a day, or drink 2 bottles of water a day, right? These are behaviors that we engage in that might not have a tangible benefit up front, but long term, right? The cumulative benefit of that adds benefit to themselves. So the way that we approach training is to make sure that we're not only giving the curriculum to our students, but we're getting people to think critically about what are the small adjustments that they can make and be consistent with that might make the job easier for them, might make the job more enjoyable, less stressful, less workload over time. So, I mean, it's part of everything, in my opinion. And any conversation that we're in about how to grow the business or how to kind of level up our game in terms of adding more value to our customers, or improving the relationship, my approach is always looking at what coaching models can we apply, or what are some new avenues that we can go into in terms of developing our people to be more self-reliant.
Yeah, and that's super interesting, because we always, whenever we talk about learning and development, there's always this question of like, what's the metric? How do we measure? And ultimately, how do we sell it up and justify our existence to, to the leadership and so forth. And so that's why I found this interesting, that your metric is different. I think you mentioned it's not about KPIs, and it's not about hiring people who are hungry, but rather people who are coachable. It's about the personal development. It's that innate desire to better themselves, I guess, right? How do you screen for that? Like, how do you identify that people?
Yeah, sure. So George Trebby founded the company back in the 1970s, and he was a professor at Xavier University here in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And originally he did market research with his students, and that market research group is what eventually grew into what we call RDI today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what Dr. Trebby saw in his students was an aptitude and a willingness to learn, right? And students usually go to school because they don't know something and they want to know more about it, right? And they get that education, they move on. And if you look in like the recruiting atmosphere on Indeed, LinkedIn, job hunters, whatever it might be, you see all these job postings for 10 years of experience for an entry level position, right? So the inflation of expectations for entry level employees, in my opinion, is kind of overblown these days. And any person that comes into our company, I don't expect them to have any relevant job experience, because there's so many different jobs that we have in the company, so many different business verticals that we touch. And so we can look at things like computer proficiency or the ability to read and things like that, stuff that we would hopefully cover in school. But when it comes to like actual business acumen, actual professional development that they're bringing in there, RDI really champions people that want to do more for themselves, right? I might not have X, Y, and Z skill set, but I would love to have that, or I'd love to work at a company where that might be provided to me. So when we look at our candidates for the company, it's not necessarily the experience that you're bringing in, but the receptiveness to learn. And some of the leadership development programs that some of our executives have put together at the organization over the past couple of years really specializes in honing in on identifying people's individual skill sets or their individual aptitudes that they might inherently have and they haven't discovered yet. And we try and maximize that not only in the classroom, but in their professional growth as well. So long story short, when we screen people, I always like to figure out I ask the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? I understand I'm talking to adults, but we can still grow up someday. And if I see people that have aspirations for more than where they currently are, in my mind, they're going to be a good fit at RDI.
Yeah, I remember that was super interesting. And I believe you hire like more entry level junior people, right? Like that's kind of like uh, most of the workforce that you bring in. But there was also this interesting model where you pair them with the very senior people, right? There's this ability to kind of learn from they get directly learning from the people who've been there for a while.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what.
absolutely. So when we start our leadership development coursework alongside with the training department,
Hmm.
I really looked at some of our agents within the organization and I asked them the question, what does growth look like to you at RDI? Or what would signify success in the business to you? And as an agent, they would usually say, well, I become a supervisor and I eventually become a manager. And there's a very linear perception of what growth in the organization is. And while that linear progression is necessary and it happens all throughout the year, there's in any given organization, there's so many different um, silos or business verticals, whatever you want to call them, recruiting, IT, quality, customer service, sales. And so that linear path in reality branches in many different directions. And so for our younger representatives within the company, typically within the first 90 days, we have what's called the bench leadership program that they apply to, and it's supplemental to the job that they currently do because this is where they're investing in their professional development. And through the application process, we select the people with the aptitude and the desire to grow, and where we see high potential. And it's a 3-course program, but the first course really hones in on the aspect of networking. And so within that course, we try and take the blinders off of this linear progression that a lot of entry level people look at and try and give them demonstrations, names, faces of all these other facets of the organization. And their first homework assignment, because I'm a strong believer in homework, even well into adulthood, their homework assignment is to reach out to leaders within other departments, directors, executives. I think that's important because an entry level employee or really any level of employee should feel like anyone within the company is easily accessible to them to communicate, collaborate, and share ideas. Most of the good ideas that we have from the company typically come from entry level perspectives because they're the ones that are boots on the ground in the trenches taking calls every day. So the things that are going to impact the business the most are usually identified by them. So
Hmm.
we make sure that entry level and during this bench leadership process that we foster a sense of networking where they build these relationships with executives and really get a better understanding of from both of their perspectives, what do they do on a daily basis and what are they doing for each other, whether or not they know. I think it kind of expands the scope of someone's daily responsibilities that they perceive for themselves and have like a greater understanding of the value that they bring to the company, but also leaves them not afraid to raise their hand and throw ideas out there. And later through that program, we work through what we call solutioning, which is conceptualizing ideas and then working with that network that you've established to facilitate actual change at any level in the company.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome how it's almost like giving a permission to these new hires, very young people, to have direct access to the most senior people in the organization, uh, and through that, it sounds like it's almost like fostering this culture of learning, which I find very interesting and unique for you.
Yeah, and we launched the leadership development programming sometime in 2021, 2022. So it's been around for about 3 or 4 years now. And the original idea was for us to bring awareness to our entry level employees and give them more insight to the organization. And I kind of like it when a plan goes right, but sometimes when a plan goes wrong, sometimes you get even better results. And so, where we thought we would be educating and enlightening our bench leaders about the organization, we on the leadership team learned so much more about the company and how we can do better and ways that we can continue to innovate because we're opening up that direct communication channel with the entry level force. And through those conversations and through these bench leadership programs, what was initially supposed to be more like an introductory and kind of like peeling back the blinds so they can continue to grow. I think in our first class, I think we roughly gross about 35 to 40% of that initial class was promoted either within the operations team or moved into another department during the 3 month span of that course. And so we realized that these bench leadership programs actually give us much faster access to hire capable potential employees that might be able to move into an IT field, for example, and start making a bigger impact right away. And so RDI predominantly has a lot of entry level workforce. Like any other business, we might hire someone outside that has a specified skill set or a certain amount of experience in a certain field. But what we found is by trying to dive deeper into these personal relationships, we're finding that level of experience and enthusiasm and dedication within the workforce that we already have.
Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of ideas come from these entry level workers, and I remember somebody once told me innovation comes from the bottom, culture comes from the top, right? Of how typically it works. So speaking of culture, I believe you also codified a little bit of this philosophy in the culture of the company. Can you was it earn, learn, live well, or something along those lines? Like, how does that look like?
Yeah, you got it, Marco. So L well is our culture at RDI, and it does stand for earn, learn, and live well. And those tenets are something that George Trebby really felt like would distinguish us in the industry, but also make RDI not only an effective place to work, but a place where people desire to work and grow. And so in terms of earn, right, earning a livable wage, earning competitive wage in the field to make sure that people are making a good living. And, as a matter of fact, earlier this week, we just released one of our leadership courses of the month where now all leadership is equipped to have budgeting and personal finance conversations with agents. So it's not only the money that we pay, but also how to give education to be most effective with it. And public education, I wish that's something we had when we were younger, how to be effective with money, credit cards, paying bill, balancing budgets. So that's something that we try and extend and empower our people with, right? Learn well is making sure that we have top of the line training experience, right? Whether from classroom onto the production floor, we have a seamless user experience. We address multiple different adult learning types, and we really make sure that the individual's not only job ready, but they're confident in what they're doing and they're excited to do it before they hit production. Outside of the job sphere, we have our leadership development department where we have entry level all the way through senior management, ongoing development. We have our LMS courses, so our e-learnings that we make in-house every single month. We have a fresh one. Every quarter, we have a new leadership course. And so now we have a catalog of over 500 courses, anywhere from changing a car tire to learning programming that's accessible to any employee within the company. So learning is not just about the job, but are we providing continuous avenues for personal development and professional development for the individual to pursue as well? And as far as live well, right, I really think the best investment that our people can make, that anyone can make, is in themselves. So outside of learning well, living well entails, the gyms that we have at work, the programming, the exercise programming, the diet, nutrition, financial hardship, outsourcing. So we, in an industry where it's very competitive, right? And in a time, in an era where job hopping is very common, right? The idea is not only to have an effective organization, but have an organization that people want to stay and grow at. And the personal promise I make to people when they walk through that door is, if you work here for a year, 2, 3 years, you can either be wildly successful at this company or you will be wildly successful elsewhere, because you will leave equipped with skills and knowledge that you did not have before. And thankfully, what that's led to is a lot of people that thought this would just be a job not only have a very promising career, but wind up being executives and leaders in the company that have just taken it to a whole new level. So our culture is our people is our culture, whatever you want to call it. But we really try and live that every single day. And going back to the point we were talking about, executives being available, right? Leadership always being available. In order for us to have a culture has to be accessible through those relations. And that's why we keep those doors wide open for everyone.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, you really, I get a sense of really caring about people and investing in them. And there's a lot of care. I was going to use the word strategy, but it's more of It's more of a care for people, like at a very deep level. So that's awesome. So, and I know this is not just you. You have a team of people that you're working with. We talked about train the trainer program, and it's a fairly sizable organization, right? That's providing learning internally. How does that work? How you guys
So yeah, we have multiple sites across the country. So I'm based in our corporate headquarters in the Midwest, but we have operations out on the West Coast. We have some nearshore operations as well. So in order to have the right amount of trainers, we staff between 30 to 50 trainers at any given time, depending on the season across the whole organization. I have a fantastic team. My management team, I don't think you're going to get a better management team of trainers out there. I remember when I was a trainer and they were trainers. So we've all grown in the organization together. And so it's been a privilege to work alongside them and now work for them, where we really understand what our young trainers need because we were there too. And so our training department primarily consists of the operations training, so the day-to-day, the different businesses that we operate in classroom. But we also kind of have an expanded universe, if you will. So I mentioned the leadership department, leadership development department multiple times. We have LWELL directors, so individuals at each site that help drive the culture and kind of be the ambassadors for that. And then we have our AI product department, where we're kind of, in my opinion, breaking a lot of ground in how AI tools can not only be effective for our customers and clients, but for our agents as well, to not only make the job more successful, but make ease of access and just being stronger at the job performance very quickly. And so you can look at it as one department, but because RDI, in my opinion, is so organic with how we share responsibilities, there's kind of like this expanded universe of different ways that we can impact the day-to-day learning and development and kind of fold that into the culture, into the day-to-day job, to fold it into the classroom, to fold it into these workshops that we have outside of work, to fold it into the tools that they have. So I feel like a training department could not really be effective if it was just in a classroom and then it stopped there. So it's really this holistic approach of how is there learning opportunities and growth during the day, changing programs, moving sites, on your way home from work, when you're at home. So it's kind of a whole team effort from all of us at RDI to not only build these things, but teach our people how to use them. And that's why coaching is, again, so important, because you can lead a horse to water, or you could coach a horse to water, I guess, and they'll know how to do it forever. So uh, best training team I've ever worked with, and I couldn't be more proud of them.
Yeah, that's super. I really get the sense of like strong culture. So that's incredible. You mentioned e-learning, and I remember when we talked, I was asking you about how you support it, what kind of systems you use, and I believe it was organically developed. It's something that you built in-house, right? And I find that like not very typical. Not a lot of companies put that level of investment into their learning systems to build something in-house, and you've developed 500 plus courses in-house. How's that working? Like, why is such a significant investment versus, like other companies would just buy something off the shelf and sign up for one of the content libraries and call it done?
Sure. You know, it wasn't that fast to begin with. When I say there's a catalog of 500 courses, 8 years ago, there wasn't that many. Think of it in the eight years about the Stone Age technology wise.
Yeah.
But it's funny, the whole reason that everything's built in house is because we operate across so many different sites and we have different programs and different billing and different. Our executives a number of years ago said, well, why are we doing the same thing 25 different ways? And then at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, it's this massive headache and this giant endless chain of emails to try and get all this information sorted out and get it lined up. So our core system, we call it RDI Core, was originally founded just to get the billable hours and the time log tracked together. And so it was this paradigm shifting tool back in the day where we said, oh my gosh, the billing cycle is now this easy thing that we don't have to worry about. So what else can we do with that concept? And so RDI Core over a number of years has just been one extra tool at a time.
Mhm.
Our quality analysis department used to be sheets of paper, and then they would be stuck in binders, and then they'd be stuck in shelves, and then they'd go into storage rooms. Now, Core has our QA portal attached to it where our audits, our reviews, our scores, and then my favorite thing is the heat map. I'm a big visual guy, so being able to see exactly where the pain points are in a program by just looking at a colored map of an overall program. So it's been kind of just this ongoing organic process over a number of years where we always say at the end of the year, we say, well, what else can we add to Core? And we have this wonderful programmer. His name is Andy Potts, and he's, in my opinion, the backbone structure of a lot of what makes the company successful, because without his ability to, he's like the core whisperer. And so we just have these wild fantasy ideas of what else could we do, and he finds a way to build it in there. So I don't know if it was something that we just stuck to as a principle initially, but there's a pain point that we kind of came together and solved as an organization. And it's just been this constant evolution every single year. How do we continue to enhance that? And so when it comes to our e-learning courses, you got to think back, there was probably a pain point originally about 8-9 years ago where it was, how do we log in and clock time? Well, let's build a little PowerPoint about that. Let's put it on this system. And then we have a resource for people to go back to and check how to clock in the time. And then just 500 different problems later, we have 500 different courses that address them. So it all has come organically out of a necessity for us to say, we can do this better. Let's figure out how.
Got it. So it was a problem that you had, and then you kind of thought through like how to solve it and iterated on that. So it was, how we have this challenge, how do we use learning as a way to solve the challenge, and then how do we make that better and better? And I remember I was asking you what you're excited about, and you mentioned AI as a means to an end, as a tool. So how do you see AI helping in with your internal tools or with learning in general? Like, where's that puck going for you?
I think it's funny to see the posts, where it looks like the Terminators are taking over, AI is taking over everything.
Yeah.
Probably like a founded concern that some folks might have, right? Because it makes sense that they see the progression of technology. But being in a industry where the main thing we do is talk to people, I will stand by that. There is nothing someone values more than another person on the other end of the phone, knowing that they're talking to a real person, understanding that there's flesh and blood that's communicating back with them. And I don't see that changing. And I don't really feel that change, because human experience is so unique because we're social creatures by nature. So 10 years ago, I wouldn't even call it AI, voice recognition training software, where you would try and replicate a script by sounding like a robot, was, in my opinion, not a very effective way to train or use a digital tool to enhance the classroom. It just didn't work. I did it. I called people and sounded like a robot. They said, you sound like a robot. But where I really think AI is going to be most effective is removing the barriers of communication. And what I mean by that, when we're working on the phones, or we're helping a customer, we're helping a patient, we're making a sales call, we have all these tools. We have a sales platform, we have a customer service platform where we look up articles or find information or document things for the people that we're talking to. And the AI tools that we're using, RDI, is just minimizing, in my opinion, the number of clicks, the amount of time that we spend away from talking to one another. So we have a whole suite of tools. Some of the ones I'd like to call out would be call simulators, where there's actual true voice recognition and the AI responds back in various ways, how a customer would in various ways, to get more closer to real call scenarios prior to going live. And between role plays in the classroom and the AI simulator, we have a good combination of human communication experience and then real practice with systems and talking simultaneously, to kind of get both parts of the experience down pat, to make that integration into production much more smooth. But the other tools, right, we have things called knowledge bases, where we can look up articles, we can ask the AI questions about where would we find this in a system. So as opposed to following multiple processes, AI has allowed us to reduce the number of clicks, reduce the amount of time searching, to really get everything we need pulled up and right in front of you in order to maximize the impact that you have on the customer. So AI, as far as RDI goes, or at least in the realm of learning development, it's reducing all the friction points of learning. It's reducing all the lag that would come with human error that allows us to capitalize on the human to human interaction.
Got it. Got it. That makes sense. So it's really freeing you from the toil work so that you can focus on what matters, and that's that human connection.
Correct.
What else are you excited about? What's next for you in terms of everything, all the work you're doing?
What am I not excited about? I mean, obviously, I could go on about the technology piece. I could go on to the different verticals that we're getting into, but really, nothing excites me more than my. I can't call them my kids because they're not my kids, but they are my kids. The new trainers, right? Every year, we have new trainers that join the department. We have people that come from different businesses or different backgrounds. My personal favorite is the young trainers, the trainers that this might be their first job. This might be their second job. This is definitely their first time in training. This is their first time public speaking. This is their first time being in front of a room full of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my favorite thing to look forward to, but because I think that's where the innovation comes from the business. I'm getting to the point where I'm one of the more older people in the department. And so I might have been a young gun back in the day. I might have been like a paradigm challenger, but I've found things that work and I found things that are effective. And I think that's good for now. But anytime that I have a new trainer that joins the department, we try and give them the same skill sets. We teach them on public speaking. We have a credentialing process of certifying our trainers. And I put them through the ropes to make sure that they get the basic tools from us. But then usually the conversation I have is now tell me what I'm wrong about. Tell me what you think is stupid. What would you rather be doing right now in that classroom? And I've seen so many good ideas and so much energy from the next generation. And I think that's something that not just training should adhere to, but any business should really keep their eyes and ears on the next people coming up, because that's who they were at one point. And now they're running the companies. And same thing with AI, right? We're looking at this thing coming up, but we should ask, how is it going to challenge what we do and change it for the better? So when it comes to things I'm excited about, it's seeing new trainers fly. And then from the personal side, right, the culture side of the business, nothing excites me more than getting a new round of people that have aspirations to do more for themselves. And it sometimes it's the same. It might be budgetary. I want to buy a car. I want to buy a house, things of that nature. But I love seeing new people come with new ideas. I'm working with a young individual right now who wants to be an author. I don't know how to be an author, but it's been this exciting journey of figuring out how to write a book, how to write chapters. And so I'm actually waiting on an email later today for the next chapter from this young person's book that they're writing. So what always excites I can't wait to be an old model, to be out of fashion, to be like old hat. I can't wait to be replaced by the next big thing, because I'm going to learn so much from that, and the company's going to learn so much from that. So that's what I'm really I look forward to that every single year. I look forward to every single day learning something new from people.
Got it. And speaking of that, my final question is, speaking of young people coming in and giving them sort of guidance and enabling them, what would be a piece of advice that you would have given to the younger version of yourself? Like, looking back, you started in sales and then switched into learning, and now you're director at this very, of learning and development at this very forward culture of learning forward company. What would have been something you would have told your younger self that you now know but didn't back then?
The best time to start is now.
Mm-hmm.
The best time to start is now. When I was in my early 20s and I was a salesperson, I wish I should have gone to the gym. I wish I was saving more money. I wish I could have paid more attention in school. Start now. The best time to start was 6 months ago, so you might as well start now. And I really think that because of AI, because of technology, because business is changing so fast every single day, get into it right now. Like, you don't have to know what you're doing to learn something, or at least figure out what you don't know. So anytime that I work with folks, either development personally or professionally, or as a company, when we see things, instead of saying, oh, we'll get to it later. No, we start now. And then if it's useful, we push it and we keep going. If it's not useful, we find a different direction. I've achieved more for myself personally in the past 4 years than I did in my cumulative 30 prior. Because being in this department, I was given permission to, if you think something should be different, do it. And that's something I tell my trainers every single day. If there's something that should be different, do it. And if it works, keep going. If it doesn't, don't. Do something else. And so that is just it's kind of my challenge to people. It's the gauntlet that I throw down, that start now. Whatever it is that's in the back of your head that you're saying every day when you wake up or when you go to bed, I wish, do it now. That's my advice.
Got it. So bias for action. Yeah, got it. Well, Chris, thank you so much. This was super inspiring. Great to hear your story. I love this culture that you're enabling, and really appreciate you sharing your experience.
Sure. Thanks, Marco. Appreciate you having me.
Great having you.
That's it for this episode of the Intelligence Amplifiers. If you like what you've heard, be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss out on the future episodes. And if you're interested in being a guest or have a question, check out the episode description for how to reach us. Also, don't forget to check out Plus Plus, the platform that makes collective intelligence at scale possible. Find out more at plusplus.co. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep amplifying.